friends. I'm your host, Heather Ashley, and welcome to another episode of Women of Her Story, a podcast dedicated to celebrating women who have made or are making their mark on our society. Today, I have with me writer, producer, actor, creator, Alexandra Boylan. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alexandra.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. I'm so excited to have you. How's your day so far? It looks beautiful outside where you're sitting. I'm super jealous.
Thank you. I'm in Los Angeles, California, and actually it's been 106 degrees, and today's the first day that it's not. So I'm enjoying it. It's just my backyard. Amazing.
Anything over like 93 degrees is just, even 93 is like too much for me.
Yeah. I was just in Georgia and that was brutal. So
that humidity hits you down there.
Yeah, I love California weather. It's the best.
Except when it's 106 degrees.
That's when I brought the Georgia weather back to LA with me. I don't know what happened.
It's all your fault. Gosh.
It is, totally.
Well, first, I want to talk about your newest movie release, Switched. Can you tell us about how you came up with the concept and what it's all about?
Yes. So Switched is about two girls in high school. One's the bully and one's the girl she bullies. And the girl she bullies prays that the other girl would know what it's like to walk a day in her shoes. And they wake up switched. And they find empathy and love and compassion for each other. We find out why the bully's a bully. And the bully finds out what it's like to walk a day in the shoes of the person that they hurt and take the pain that they caused. So, and we had come up with the idea, our company, obviously my company, Mustard Seed Entertainment, is female driven, everything. And when I looked at the landscape of faith-based films, there really wasn't anything talking to the youth, and it definitely wasn't talking to the youth in sort of fun, outside the box kind of ideas. So we're always trying to figure out how to talk to teens in a fun way. So, and also, I don't know about you, but I was bullied really bad in high school, like really bad. And it still stays with me to this day. And we kind of were talking about how do we make a bullying movie, but make it fun, like enjoyable to watch, where kids want to share it with their friends, but where they're laughing and having a good time, but then they're walking away from it going, maybe I should treat people differently. You know what I mean?
Rather than something that's completely vilifies and makes the bully a completely unrelatable person that no one can even notice themselves or their own behaviors within that type of character.
Yeah. Well, and a big thing of this film, we wanted people to walk away and go, why is the bully a bully? And does that person need some love? Like, if we could love a bully and get to the heart of the problem, we could stop a chain reaction of that bullying hurting other people because that we healed their hearts. And that's a big thing with the film. We hope you'll people, parents, everyone walks away going, maybe something's going on with that kid and they need some extra love, or something's going on in their home life that's hurting them, and we need to like find out what's going on.
Yeah, maybe they're, you are what you spend the most time around, right? So maybe maybe someone's got a bully as a parent and they just naturally are like, well, this is how we treat people then. Like, this is how we do it, right?
Yeah. Well, and my mom used to say when I was a kid, she always said, I don't like you hanging out with that girl. She doesn't bring out a good side in you. And I think that's true too. We are the 5 people we spend the most time with. So if you're spending time with somebody who's rough around the edges, not being kind to people, then you're going to start being like that. But if you're spending time with people who exude joy and love and kindness, then you're going to exude joy and love and kindness. So, but yeah, that was like a big thing. Our inspiration for Switch was wanting to be able to talk about bullying in a really fun way, kind of Freaky Friday meets Mean Girls, that teen girls want to see. I feel like there's a lot of movies for boys in bullying, but we don't see a lot of girls, and girls bully so different than boys. And a lot more psychologicalness to it, a lot more cyberbullying, where a guy will punch each other and then they're best friends 5 minutes later, where a girl will do some really nasty stuff and it's all on social media, you know, there's
Rumor
a lot of
mongering,
girl
yeah, all
bullying.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was excited to get to show the girls' perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that recently came out, right? So what was that
Last
released
Friday,
like?
September 4th. Well, the release, it came out VOD and digital because we're in the time of COVID, so there's no real theatrical. We do have a couple movie theaters that are showing it, but you know, people aren't really going to the movie theater right now. So
Yeah,
it's actually a great time to release an anti-cyberbullying movie when everybody is home, literally glued to their
yeah,
devices all day. So we've been
absolutely.
getting beautiful messages, yeah, from girls. And I mean, parents, you know, kids aren't even going back to school. So they're just at home. The parents need something clean to show them so they can show them Switch and be like, don't be mean on social media.
And it's also, I feel like a lot of adults, social media, Facebook specifically, isn't, just for kids anymore. So I think it's a good message for adults too, to be like, you can't just run your mouth on Facebook to a stranger or person and expect it to not have an effect on their day at the very least.
I know.
Sometimes
I feel like it's so,
it's just, yeah, it's just so random sometimes.
and it's so easy to hide behind a computer and not
Mm,
even see the face of the person you're affecting. And with social media, I've just decided that if I don't have anything nice to say, I'm not going to say anything at all. And I just
mhm.
ignore all the stuff that I don't agree with. But people are fighting, especially right now. And there's so much division that I'm like, what's the point of that? Like, it's not like we really think we're going to change somebody's mind by being mean, by bullying them. It's more like, let's just spread love and do things that are
Yeah.
kind and say kind things. Like when people repost videos of people being mean, I feel like that's like the worst thing you can do. We should only be reposting when people are being kind. We
Hmm.
should be supporting the good and not
Encouraging that
glorifying the bad.
behavior. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like there are people who go out of their way to be a horrible, horrible person because they know that someone's going to video them and post it, and then they're hoping they're going to go viral. And that type of personality, I would personally classify as chaotic evil. Somebody who's like, let's feed off of the terribleness that I can so easily bring out of everyone.
Totally.
Crazy.
When we won the Movie Guide Awards for Best Screenplay for Switched, and when I got up to receive the award, I said, I'm in the room with all these entertainers. We all have a platform to do good in this world. And I said, as creators of entertainment, we can reflect a broken culture, or we can create a culture that leads with love.
Mm.
And for me, it's like, instead of making a movie that like shows how people act to each other, let's make a movie to show how people should act to each other, even if it's not how they're behaving. But we get
Absolutely.
to kind of create the culture. So like, I'm not a huge fan of 13 Reasons Why, because I watched that show thinking, why would we glorify suicide and revenge? Like, yes, maybe that's what's happening in the world, but doing that only creates a copycat situation.
Mm-hmm.
It would be better to be like, how do we not behave that way? How can we
Mm-hmm.
turn this around to be kind? So that's where
Mm-hmm.
Switched really, gives kids something to walk away with, to know how to live a better life, how to do it better. And parents.
Absolutely. So your projects all seem to be uplifting. Why is that important for you to tell that kind of story? I mean, I guess we've kind of been discussing that, right? Creating a society that circles
Yeah.
around goodness and not malintent.
Yes, exactly. Well, my first feature film that I made in 2011 is called Home Sweet Home, and it's a thriller about a girl who returns to her childhood abandoned house, and there's squatters living in it, and they don't want to leave. And it stars a woman, two women. The villain's a woman and the victim's a woman, which was
Mm.
really actually fun to get to show a woman villain. But after we made the movie and we moved on to Faith-Based Family, we made a movie called Catching Faith, and we were getting messages from like women in villages in South Africa who said that the movie changed their life. One woman was like, I've never seen myself represented like this on TV. And I'm like, I like cried for an entire day. I was like, a
Yeah.
woman in a village in South Africa finally saw herself represented. What's wrong with our world that these women aren't seeing themselves represented? So it really gave me the passion and desire to create positive women's stories. Catching Faith ended up doing very well. We actually got invited to Cuba on a movie tour to Cuba, where women's lives have been like transformed. And I was like, okay, I never want to do anything else with my life. I get one precious life. What can I do to spread love, spread joy, represent women correctly, and young girls? And so I think I think once you make something that someone says that changed my life, it really is hard to go back to another horror movie where it's just like, no one called me and said Home Sweet Home changed their life, you know?
Maybe they had nightmares for an evening, like.
Horror movies are fun. Thrillers are fun, but it takes a lot of time. We're an independent film company. We make our movies with blood, sweat, and tears. And I'm like, if I'm going to put 1.5 years of my life into this, sacrifice so much, then I want to do something that's going to leave the world a better place.
Absolutely. So I'd love to hear more about your film At Your Own Risk.
Yeah.
It sounds, I said this to you in an email, that it sounds like my worst nightmare and also my dream come true. Like it sounds like Amazing Race meets, like, I don't know, something completely different and very interesting.
Yes. Well, I hope you'll watch it. If you get a chance to see it, it's really good. So that was made by Helena Santos, who's a dear friend of mine. She actually created a Ms. in the Biz. I don't know if you've heard of Ms. in the Biz.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I've known her for years. I've been writing for that site since it started. And her and I, we had actually John Katie Graham and Richard Galley, who were my partners for like the past 12 years, men who champion women, who are awesome. We had just come off Wish for Christmas, which at the time was our biggest film. It had Joey Lawrence, Bill Engvall, Ellen Baker. It had our biggest budget. And we got back from shooting that movie and we were like, let's just go make a movie for fun. Like 4 of us in the desert with no budget, no star names, no stress. And that's what we all did. So my brother Andrew wrote that script. I mean, we all kind of collaborated on it. But we did, I think Helena, I think it was sort of like, it's always fun when you try to think back to where an idea came from, because a lot of times it's just conversations in a room. And then you're like, oh, I like that idea. But I think she had heard like this NPR article or news thing that gave us kind of all like spawned our imagination of something that would be really fun about these 2 girls who get a PR job and then they get sent to the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. And a lot of reviewers were compared it to Black Mirror. Yeah. And that was like our best compliment, because you have ideas, you go make it, you don't know how people are going to react. And I don't want to give it away because I want everyone to go see At Your Own Risk, because the ending is really awesome and nice little twist there. And my brother Alex won the Amazing Race, actually. Yeah.
What season?
The 2nd season. So we're going way back.
I don't think you understand my obsession with that show. I have watched all the seasons multiple times.
Really? Okay, so
yes.
Alex Boylan and Chris Luca were the Boston boys from season 2.
Oh my God.
You know those? Do you remember them?
Yes.
And Tara and Blake Makowski, who created Tom Shoes, was the 3rd runner-up with Paige.
Oh my gosh, that is hysterical. I really do have a problem with my obsession. I bring it up weekly. I talk about The Amazing Race.
I love The Amazing Race. Originally my brother was going to be on Survivor, and I'm kind of glad that it didn't work out. And then he went off and did Amazing Race, because I was like, this show's way better than Survivor. He even said he got to go on an adventure around the world on CBS's dime. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And he won $500,000. I mean, that's
so funny. What a hilarious world. Oh my gosh. So that makes sense why I was like, it kind of feels.
He has an amazing race, but also the whole like not knowing thing, because they don't know what's going on. They don't know. So, but yeah, so literally Helena, Rick, John, and myself went out to Alamogordo, New Mexico, 4 of us shot that entire feature film, just us. We had like $1,000, a camera, a boom, and made a movie. And it looks awesome.
Yeah. From all the, from like the trailer and things that I watched, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so
You'll love
cool. Oh man, that is so much fun. So then it's a myth that you need $25,000 to make a feature.
It's a myth. I feel like really a lot of it, more important than money is the people behind the camera.
Absolutely.
You can have all the money in the world, but if the person behind the camera has no eye for what they're creating, then it's not going to look good. All of our
Green Lantern.
Exactly. Hence a ton of Hollywood movies with $100 million budgets. Yeah. Sometimes, and a lot of that money doesn't even go to in front of the screen. It goes to the, the producers living in a mansion on location and private jets and stuff. Mm-hmm. Whereas like, you don't need a ton of money to make a really good quality. If you have a good story, a good team, mm-hmm. and you're all dedicated to like sleeping in a, in a pop-up tent or on the floor. We've all slept on the floor in sleeping bags, tents. I mean, we've done it all. Like, we'll literally hop in a car and drive cross country. Like, let's go make a movie. That sounds like fun.
Oh my gosh. It sounds and shows that you guys actively enjoy what you're doing, and that it's not just churning out things to have content or to have these like X number of projects under your belt. This sounds like fun. Let's enjoy our week in New Mexico, or let's make this really awesome like teen girl movie and love what we're doing, and you can always tell when there's passion and love behind a project.
Absolutely. And I always say that even for our crew or our cast, if people are just clocking in to make money, their heart isn't going to be in it. But everyone that we've been able to bring on our team, everybody is in it for the story. They believe in it. Nobody's just clocking in and out. Like our editor, Lex Benedict, she goes above and beyond, and she's not clocking in. She's like, I believe in this story and I can't wait to edit it. And that's what you need. And you want that. You want people who are there because they love it, not just to make money. I've been a stand-in. I've worked on huge movie sets as a stand-in and watched people just clocking in going, ugh, I hate being here, complaining. And then, they're not going to put their best work into it. And for At Your Own Risk, another thing that Helen and I really wanted to do with At Your Own Risk was to make a film about 2 women that would normally never get made by Hollywood. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So 2 women who go to the desert, who go on this adventure. We don't get scared and accidentally take all our clothes off and run around. It doesn't happen. We don't even get scared. We don't fight like in the way that Hollywood would pin up 2 girls against each other. We women will fight for a second and then they're like, all right, we got to survive. How do we solve this? Women are solvers, and we wanted to show 2 women working together, not what you normally see.
Not pitted against each other.
Not pitted against each other. Exactly. And if it is, it's only for a second to get to wherever we need the story to go for them to come together. And of course, totally. It's very frustrating when so many of these kind of films are made from the male gaze, and you're watching as a woman going, we don't act like that. Can a woman get behind the camera and tell the story, please?
Or with a specific like a desert situation, like I would not be walking around in sandals or like whatever. I would be properly dressed for this adventure with like not just a purse. I'm gonna have a backpack. I'm gonna have a water bottle. I'm gonna have snacks because I like snacks. Like it's
our characters wear trekking, hiking in the desert clothes because we knew we were going on this geocache adventure in the middle of New Mexico. So we were dressed appropriately. We were not half naked, and we never take our clothes off because that would make no sense at all.
Yeah, because that's just not logic.
It's not. So like, it was really fun to make something where we got to decide how the women were portrayed. And hopefully, I mean, Helen and I both really want to champion women and change it for women. Like, if women don't change it for each other, then, when if we don't get in a power position and go to bat for all the other women, well, then that's just silly. We need to send the ladder down. It's like a jungle gym. We need to help each other get to the next rung. And every time we create something that empowers women, changes the narrative, then we are doing that for the next women coming up the ladder.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because I looked down at my sheet of questions, and I realized we've already segued through that whole question. I was going to ask, why it's important for you to have female-driven plots and staff, mostly women, behind the camera, and what inspired you. And it's literally what we've been talking about. It's about having stories of women told by women through an actual proper lens.
But I think that, like, we just need a seat at the table so that there is a woman going, that's not how we act, like in the writer's room, like,
yeah.
I have man suggest what a woman should do in a scene, and I'm like, but that's not how a woman would act, and that's just what your philosophy is. And I'm a huge member of Women in Film, Ms. in the Biz, Women in Moving Picture Salon. I'm pretty much involved in every women's group that you can find, and sitting in on all of those meetings where people are constantly complaining about the landscape of the film world, I will sit there in the meeting going, why are we complaining? We should be all getting together and making stuff and changing it. Because complaining is not going to do anything.
Right.
And I've always felt very strongly that if I was the woman who could put myself in a power position as a producer, that I would go to bat for women. I wouldn't sit around a room and complain about it. I'd change it. And that's been a huge passion of mine. Like, even on Catching Faith, when I had the ability to hire, I hired a grip as a woman, and my gaffer was like, you gave me a woman as my only grip. And I said, her resume is just as good as everybody else's.
Yeah.
And at the end of the show, he said she was the best he'd ever worked with, but it took me making him hire her for him to find out how great she was.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's not even that, guys just don't think to hire us. We don't look like them. It's why my movies are all so many women, because sometimes I forget to write in guys, or I always have women crew because I forget to hire guys. Yeah. I'm like, all my friends look like me. One of my dreams and passions, but I need a lot of money, is to do Women of the Bible story. And because there are so many, I mean, these are women in history, whether you believe the Bible is the word of God or not, it's still women who lived in and did extraordinary things. And I feel like women in the Bible don't get a lot of play. Like, my dad's a pastor, and I don't remember him preaching a lot on women.
Yep.
And I've said that to him now as an adult. I've been like, how come I didn't know the Deborah Jael story, or I didn't know the Miriam story really well? And so I feel like that would be really cool to do. It would be women in history and women who did extraordinary things in biblical times that nobody knows what they did, like leading armies and killing like evil, kings and bad. And so that's one dream. I'd love to get with Roma Downey and be like, Roma, let's make a Woman of the Bible story of all these extraordinary women in history. Nobody knows their story.
I could see that be like a Netflix series extended situation. I feel like that would be like, everybody would watch that. That would be so cool. That needs to happen now. It's fully on the universe. That has to happen. I
totally agree. And it needs money, because I mean, it's kind of like, Roma Downey and Mark Burnett, they did do the Bible series, and that did very well on the National Geographic Channel. So now I'm like, okay, let's like just focus on like 7 women, and not just like the women we know about, but the women that we don't know about, because I think that would be so fascinating. I mean, Deborah Jael stories like Wonder Woman. It's like they were like these women brought peace to their nation for 60 years. 2 women that nobody's like, I've never even heard of those women in the Bible. I'm like, I know, it's crazy. So I would love to do it, but it needs a lot of money because it is like Wonder Woman. It is like, but I feel like we see Samson, we see Paul, we see the same movies keep coming out about the guys. We know Noah, we know these stories. I'm like, but it would be really cool to see that. And it is women in history and talk about like a crazy time. I mean, biblical times are pretty intense. So that needs to happen. We're putting it out there. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It will happen. I'm picturing it. I can see it. Oh man, that is such a great idea. That's such an interesting idea.
Yeah, I would love to. I just need to get with the right person. Help me get that kind of budget.
Does anyone listening have deep pockets?
Anybody, or even I've Greta Gerwig, who directed Little Women. She actually just said on a Variety interview what she'd love to see is the Bible retold from the woman's perspective. And I was like, someone get me to Greta. I was like, Greta, let's do this. It's really cool. And I think it would help like, you know, there's a lot of stigma that of it being so male driven, but that's just the fall of man. God loves women, and I hate that narrative of like because of fall of man, like, oh, God doesn't love women. Like, that's ridiculous. And he used women to literally crush armies. So I gotta get that out there in the world.
So has it always been smooth sailing in your career?
No, I wish. So I moved to LA when I was 19 in 1999. I am 40. I was a baby. I moved here from Massachusetts, literally in my Toyota Corolla. I was like, I'm going to be a movie star. Watch out, Hollywood. And within a year, I was homeless, and I was living in my Toyota Corolla. And I spent a month living in my car, not because I didn't have money or a job. I just literally didn't have a place to live. And I was so new to LA, I didn't know anybody who would take in some 19-year-old girl. And I ended up sleeping in my car for a month. And, you know, I got to say my first 10 years here, which was 1999 to 2009, was horrendous. Like, I worked in bars, restaurants, waited tables, and I just could not get an agent. I couldn't book anything. Even when I got a manager, you know, it just never worked out well. So I struggled so hard. You know, I drank way too much at my club jobs because I was working in a nightclub, and so depressed. I started getting pretty depressed, and also I was doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results for 10 years, which will make you go insane. And I have a very strong work ethic, and I learned this now, not then, but you cannot work hard enough for someone else to choose you. So I'd be like a hamster in a cage, running and running and running, being like, I want to work hard, but nobody would pick me. So it didn't matter. All my hard work was never going anywhere. And so in 2009, I literally gave up, and I packed up my bags and I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had heard that the industry, especially in 2009, was booming. You know, big movies were filming out there. And I also just needed to leave LA because something about LA, my mindset was so stuck that I couldn't think outside of the box that I had created for myself.
Right.
And I knew I had to just remove myself from Los Angeles and remove myself from being a waitress who was drunk all the time, who was literally miserable. And I was like, and also, you know, I went to only a year of college, so I didn't have a college education. And I realized at 29 years old that if I stayed down that road, I would be, you know, 40 years old, 50-year-olds still waiting tables with no skill sets, doing the same thing. So I literally at 29, I'm so glad I moved. I went to Albuquerque. I became a companion to elderly people. I did a job that was so different. I was so sick of myself after spending 10 years pursuing acting, which is all about your headshots and your hair and your body. I was like, I hate myself. I hate myself. I'm sick of talking about myself.
Right.
And I literally got a job hanging out with old people. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I got to go and listen to people talk about their life and hear their stories and be like, I am going to have no life to tell anybody about. If I stay on this trajectory, I'll be a really sad person in a nursing home.
Your companion was like, what were your 20s like? They were terrible. I hated them. I hated my 20s.
I waited every day to succeed, and then I didn't succeed, and then I was like, what am I doing all the time? So yeah, so that was a great little break. I think for a year in New Mexico. I don't know if you've been to New Mexico, but it's so spiritual. It's so, they call it the land of entrancement, the land of enchantment, and the land of entrapment. It's both of those things. But I just spent like a year by myself, taking walks, hanging out with old people, and really going, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Because this isn't working, and I don't want to be unhappy anymore. And I literally met John Graham and Richard Galley and on a short film, because I was still kind of working a little bit in the industry because it was happening. So if I had an agent in New Mexico, couldn't got one in LA, but I had one in Mexico. So I'd actually like audition and book some things for fun. And we all kind of got together and we met each other and we said, would you guys want to start making stuff for fun? I wrote this little short film and let's just do things on our off time to be creative. And then it's interesting because my mindset went from I want to succeed to I want to be creative. How can I tell a story? And when that mindset shifted, I actually became successful. It's funny. When I actually just cared about getting to create things and having no expectations. I didn't think anyone would ever see it. I did it because I loved it. I did it because I loved the people I was with. And, you know, I used to work overnight shifts where I'd literally be with my client all night long. I'd sleep at their house, get up and help them in the middle of the night. And then I'd wake up and at 6 a.m. I'd leave work and I'd go like make short films with my friends.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. It was awesome. And then I had all these great stories. And funny when you get to do probably as a podcast, you get to listen to people's stories all the time. Yeah. And I have pulled so many of those people's stories and put them in my movies now because it was fascinating. So yeah, I struggled. I mean, I've struggled. I'm still struggling. It's a hustle. You know, Switch took 4 years to get made, and I can't even tell you how many people rejected the script for Switch. It was not easy to get that movie made. And I would literally have executives in studios say, I don't understand these girls in high school. Why do they care about their friends? Nobody wants this movie. What's the audience? I'm like, what's the audience? It's a teen girl movie. Mother-daughters all over the world want to watch it. And it's inspirational. And, you know, like we talked about earlier, I actually got offered a very high number for Switched from a studio if I would make it raunchy and have the girls do things that I was like, absolutely not. You will not take my teen girl movie and make it a raunchy movie where the girls have to get drunk at parties and take their clothes off and do things that, because even the actors, when they booked the roles on Switch, were like, I don't have to do anything questionable. Like, how cool is that?
I don't have to sign a weird waiver.
And I don't have to take my clothes off, or I don't have to make out with some gross guy I don't want to make out with. Like, it's really not saying that that's fine too. People make out, that's fine. I'm just saying that like these girls were refreshed, that they got to do something that was inspirational, empowering the young women, and they as actual human beings didn't have to do anything they didn't want to do.
Right. Absolutely. Back to you saying that you were influenced by or have taken bits and pieces of people's stories and use them as inspiration. Do you remember those specific people when you use those bits and pieces as inspiration?
Yeah. So, and this is this story inspired me, but it also really changed my life. I had a client. Most of my clients were women. Women outlive men. And so mostly I'd hang out with women, but I had this one gentleman who was my client, and I walked into his house for the first time, and he had NASA plaques all over his house. Like, this man was in very important part of NASA. And I'm looking around at the plaques and I'm like, wow. And I don't remember the gentleman's name. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, look what you did for NASA. You're incredible. And he was like, oh, I want to tell you about my wife who just passed away. I want to tell you about my children and my grandchildren. And that was a huge wake up call for me at 30 years old to go, wow, at the end of our life, it isn't the plaques on our walls that we're going to want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's the people we spent our life with. And that literally, that one line that man said to me changed my mentality forever. And also, if I'm going to have a plaque on my wall, that plaque better have done something incredible for this world, not just whatever I did.
Wow. Oh, I'm all like, that made me a little emotional. Like,
Me
man.
too. I still get emotional. And then I use that very line in Catching Faith 2, the sequel to Catching Faith. The boy gets a football injury and he loses his football career forever. And he gets invited by his high school coach to come and coach with him. And he doesn't think that's good enough because he was a big star and now he's going to be nothing. And Bill Engvall, who plays the coach, says to the boy, you see, at the end of your life, it's not about your accomplishments that matter. It's about the people you spend your time with. And you should come and help these kids learn how to play football. And you'll probably end up getting more reward than if you were a superstar. And he doesn't go on to that, but I did take, that's what happens in the movie and what the lesson the kid learns. And so that was fun. And then everything, all of our movies are definitely pulling from our real life. Or we made a movie called Wish for Christmas. And the story is about a spoiled, self-centered senior girl in high school who, when the big winter ball gets moved to Christmas Eve night, she can't attend because her parents are Christians and she has to go to church. And her parents are kind of strict and they're kind of involved in her life more than she'd like. And she makes a wish that they wouldn't believe in God anymore. And she wakes up and finds out that it's come true. And she finds out what her parents are like when the light of Jesus is removed from their heart. And really what we did with the movie was we just made her parents become a reflection of who she is so she can actually see herself. And that stemmed from the fact that I am a minister's kid. I wished every single day that my parents didn't believe in God because I didn't want to have to go to church. And I wanted to watch Dirty Dancing and I wasn't allowed to. And I wasn't allowed to wear the clothes that I wanted to wear. And there was a lot of restrictions in our household. But as an adult looking back, I was like, what if my parents weren't the people they were? I mean, they were such wonderful, engaging, loving parents, supportive, pushing us to play sports and be in plays, and also very involved. And as an adult, I can appreciate, but as a kid, I just wanted to get to do what all my friends were doing. And I wasn't going to the parties and getting drunk and doing any of that stuff because I wasn't allowed to. And now I'm like, thank goodness, what would happen? I did that in my 20s. I got drunk all the time, but no. But so that storyline is the whole Wish for Christmas storyline, and it was really stemming from what, like, as an adult looking back, like, I wished this, but what if that had really happened? That could have been a terrible circumstances. But it's fun. It's fun to, same with Switched. It's like, Switched came from, one of the stories was, my dad was a minister, so we were really poor. And I used to have to go down to the basement of the church and pick through trash bags of donated clothes to wear my clothes. And I was mortified. I hated it. And I'd be like, Mom, can't we go to the mall and buy clothes? Like, I want to look cute. And we didn't have the money. And I would go to school and get tormented by the kids of how bad I looked. And I always thought, like, if they could imagine what it was like to walk a day in my shoes, would they talk to me like this? If they had to be the one that had to go down to the basement of a church and pick from other people's clothes, would they make fun of me if they had my perspective? And that's where Switch came in, of like, how do we show kids that we have no idea what someone is going through until we walk a day in their life?
Would you say that that is spreading that message is one of the missions behind Mustard Seed Entertainment.
Yes. So I mean, definitely our whole thing is female driven movies. We want to tell there's plenty of studios making male driven faith based films. We want to do tell everything from the female perspective. And I guess we kind of look at ourselves as Disney for Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're like fun, we think outside the box, like we're not we're not doing your typical faith-based film. We are really stretching it to the limits with our stories, and switching bodies and making wishes. And I think, I think God loves that. Like he doesn't want it to be put in some little tiny box. If we believe he created the universe, I mean, oh my gosh, we can't even, fathom the universe. And, I mean, so to me that's kind of Mustard Seed Entertainment is Disney for, and I want to say the interesting thing is I've had a lot of people come to me saying, why don't you do mainstream films? And I was like, I want to do mainstream films. But the problem is the second I have mainstream meetings, I have to change the script. And I'm like, what happened to just good old fashioned clean stories? Why can't it be a clean movie for kids? I don't want it to swear. I don't want the girls to do anything questionable. But in order to do that, I kind of have to stay in faith-based.
Or it has to be like a children's movie,
Right.
like it's either like super, super clean, meant for kids 10 and younger, or it's, a little iffy in terms of what's there. And they're like, no, this is high school. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't really know that's high school. Well, looking at a lot of the teen dramas, I'm like, none of my friends did any of that. So
right. Drugs, and I'm like, I don't know. I grew up in Georgetown. There was no like drug. Maybe there was a little bit of drinking, but there was like no drugs in my hometown. But I'll tell you what, there was a lot of bullying.
Yeah.
We've taken relevant stories and trying to find a fun way to tell it. We actually just got back. I got back like 2 weeks ago from Columbus, Georgia. I shot another film actually during COVID. We shot a feature film in 17 days. We did 342 COVID-19 tests, not a single positive test.
Wow, good work.
Thank you. And that's another just great story. Like we just try to take really fun ideas, mainstream ideas. Nobody's reinventing the wheel. We're all just coloring the wheel a different color. You always want to see what works and then do it a little bit different.
Add a couple feathers, maybe a rhinestone here and there.
Yes. And just telling like really, really inspirational stories that people, and I think, especially right now, people are looking for things that they're going to walk away feeling hopeful. Like some girl gave us a review the other day and she said her heart was filled with joy when she watched Switch. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I just want it to be, I want to be a light. I want to be a light. There's a darkness out there. We gotta be pushing to make things that bring joy to people, So, and I feel like right now, like I'm so grateful that we had Switch to release right now in the world because kids are at home, cyberbullying's up, and we were able to put out a movie that was so relevant to this time right now. And it's funny because the movie got rejected for so many years. I pitched it to every studio in Hollywood. And I couldn't believe it kept getting rejected because I was like, this is Freaky Friday meets Mean Girls and I don't get it. But now I look back at the timing going, you know what? It was supposed to come out right now. And that's why we got rejected. Not because we were getting rejected, but because there was a timing and there is a time for everything. And I think that would encourage people that if you really believe in an idea and you have something special, don't give up on that because it just might be that there is a time and the time isn't right then.
Absolutely. Have you had any moments where you just thought, yes, this is right. What we're doing here is working. This is just, we are in the right place at the right time?
It's such a great question. because I'm not going to lie, I've had a very big uphill climb. Talk about, like, it's hard enough as women in Hollywood. No, but go to women in faith-based, it's even harder. All the studios in faith-based are run by men. Everybody I pitched my movies to literally are men. And I'm like, can I please get a woman to pitch this movie to?
Yeah.
So I stepped into a really tough industry when I chose to make female-driven faith-based films. It wasn't like I was embraced and everybody was like, it's that even when I wanted to make Catching Faith, our executive producer who got the money said, you have to make it football. And I said, okay, we're going to make it football, but we're going to make it star a woman. And he was like, oh, you can't do that. And I was like, why? And he goes, because there's no numbers in the marketplace to back up a female-driven faith-based film. And I was like, yeah, that's because nobody's making them and they don't exist. So why don't we be the numbers and we make it and sure enough, it went on to become the top 5 consistent selling movie for the distribution company. And I would say right now, honestly, right now is when I feel the most like, and all my hard work and my battles to fight for women and fight for these stories is finally, with the release of Switched, everything feels like the synergy is right. Like all the hard work is paying off. We are on the right track. I definitely felt that way when we were invited to Cuba to show Catching Faith and all these women came to watch and their lives were impacted. I was like, I don't care if I don't have the #1 movie in Hollywood. If I'm changing one person's life, then that's enough. And so I would say right now I feel that way because Switch came out with great reviews. But right after Wish for Christmas, we had a lull, like a year and a half where I just couldn't get anything off the ground. And I was very discouraged because I'd had a lot of meetings with a bunch of my scripts and everything was rejected. And I just felt like, after spending 10 years pursuing something that didn't work out, I was like, well, I don't want to do that again.
Been there, done that. No, thank you.
I did that. I can't force this. There was a lot of times a couple years ago where I thought maybe I should give up, stop fighting for female-driven faith-based films. Also because I didn't have any women in power positions to pitch to. So I was like, I can't go into another meeting where I know the person isn't going to resonate with my story because it looks nothing like them. So I'm just so grateful that we did stick it out and we did believe in it because it did pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So in addition to these incredible projects you've been able to work on, your entertainment companies, you've also released a book. Because why not do some more stuff? Like just add more things onto the plate. Tell us about your book, Create Your Own Career in Hollywood.
Yes. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for bringing up my book. So I write for Ms. in the Biz, and I am, like I said, a really big advocate in all the female organizations. And as people learned about my career, that I really literally came from nothing and created a career. People would ask if they could take me to coffee and pick my brain. And in the beginning, after Home Sweet Home, I would go to coffee with everybody and I get on the phone with everybody. And then as my career started to do well, I got really busy and I couldn't go to coffee with every single person that asked me to go to coffee. So I was like, I have been writing for Ms. in the Biz for years at this point. And my articles actually start right when we sold Home Sweet Home and go all the way to At Your Own Risk.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, and they're literally, the articles are like me in the trenches. Like literally, I gave up my home for a year to make Catching Faith, lived out of a suitcase for a full year. So those articles are literally me being like, well, I just gave up my apartment. I'm moving to Wisconsin. I don't even know if we're going to make this movie. I don't know if everyone's going to buy this movie, but I'm going to step out in faith and give up everything I have to go make it anyway.
Yeah.
So the book really is the trajectory of my career. Not only everything I did that worked, but also me in the trenches, like what we talked about earlier, like me talking about what it's like to literally have everybody say no to a project and then have that project go on to do really, really well, or living out of a suitcase for a year, literally being on set of a movie. So create your own career in Hollywood is because I couldn't go to coffee with everybody, so I published it. But it also really is like, if you wanted to know how I got my career from A, B, C, D, E, the book goes right through my career. And it was really exciting. And I added some more articles in. So it's a bunch of articles. And literally, if people want to know how to make an independent film from conception to completion, buy that book, because it tells you exactly how we did it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, they, one of my favorite quotes, I'm going to paraphrase it, and I'm sure I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. Is learn from the mistakes of the people before you, because you don't have enough time to make them all yourself.
Right. Exactly. I
So
love that quote. That's great.
if someone has literally published a book that is saying, these are all the things that I did, these are the things that didn't work, these are the things that did work, here you go. Like, use those things that are around you. They're there because somebody has literally walked this path before you and is saying, I want to help you. Learn from what I did, because these things did not work and these things did.
Totally. And I think also being willing to pivot in your career is huge. Finding, not being so, for 10 years, I was held so tight to being an actor that I put all of my tools, sorry, this is Isaac, my 14-year-old best friend, Isaac. I put all my tools in a toolbox and threw them under a bed and said, no, I'm just an actor. And this was back in the day where, multi-hyphenated wasn't really a thing. You were an actor or you weren't an actor. You couldn't do something else. And I wasn't writing. I wasn't doing anything else. And I'm so glad I pivoted to be like, well, I can still be an entertainer in a different way, even if it doesn't, I'm not on the cover of Vogue as like Emma Stone. It's okay. I could do something else. And then finding a way to put your passion into something different will, actually give you a lot of reward in life. And we wrote a horror script called The Night Shift, which I would still love to see get made. It's about a girl who works overnight shifts in a haunted nursing home.
I wonder where that came from.
Yeah, I did work in a haunted, and I'm always like, why are nursing homes not the setting for horror movies? Because I'm telling you, no one's going there to get out of there. Nope. And it's creepy as heck. And I used to do overnight shifts in nursing homes that were completely haunted. So anyway, we were just really trying to get that movie off the ground when we got the opportunity to make Catching Faith. And John and I literally dropped that movie and went and made we went and wrote Catching Faith. And had we stayed stuck and no, we have to do The Night Shift, we have to do this horror movie, well, we could still be stuck on that right now. But we said, oh, this is an opportunity. Let's try it and go for it. And that's a big piece of advice I'd love to give people, because I think people get really stuck in one thing. And then I did, not other people, I did. And once I'm not saying other people, I'll take all full responsibility for being someone who got completely stuck.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to pivot. Do something new. Somebody told us when we made Catching Faith, somebody was like, well, you can't sell a horror movie and then go sell a faith-based family movie. You just can't do it. And I was like, who said that? Who made those rules up?
Yeah, why?
And then we ended up selling Catching Faith to the same distribution company we sold Home Sweet Home to. So I was like, well, I guess that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Honestly, like, being adaptable is so important, and not assigning yourself, like you said, to a box of exactly where you think you have to be, where you think you have to define yourself as an actor. And if you're anything else, you failed entirely, because for whatever reason, that's like what you've decided you have to be. And it doesn't have to be like that. There are other avenues.
And I think that if you pursue something and then you consider yourself a failure, that's so detrimental to your mentality that I really even have to say that to myself. Like, I'm not a failed actor. I just pivoted and did something different. because that can really mess with you, you know, like, and nothing is a failure. Everything teaches you. I mean, I studied acting for years, and now I use that to write scripts. And I feel very proud of my writing, because I spent years studying theater, studying scripts. And I had no idea that all those years I was learning how to write good dialogue.
Yeah.
So, and I think you're right. I think in this time period, it's really hard, because we have all been on a certain trajectory that the world got shut down 6 months ago. And now you have to almost pivot to survive.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of scary. I've been a little scared about it, because I was like, oh my gosh, finally things are going good. And then the world shuts down. Wait a minute. What am I going to do?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? You made a feature.
I did.
So,
and I'll do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Not afraid of anything. And I can make a movie with 3 people. So
see? Yeah. You're like, whatever. I'll find a way. It'll happen.
Yeah, we'll shoot something in the desert, in the middle of nowhere, where there's no one around. Yeah.
Well, you've given us your best piece of advice. What's the best piece of advice that you've received so far?
Ooh, man, that's a great question. I mean, besides what that man said to me a long time ago, the NASA man, you know, I think some of my best advice I've gotten was from all the people I worked with. Just whenever I was with a new client, I'd always ask people, you know, what's your secret to happiness? What's your secret to life? And mostly everybody said, just enjoy it. Like, don't stress, and just enjoy life, and eat what you want, drink what you want. A lot of my clients would say that, actually. Like, they were like, I never didn't let myself have what I needed, and that gave me a happy mentality. Therefore, I do think your mentality is longevity. More so than any, I mean, obviously working out is so important, but a joyful spirit. Stress will kill you. Stress will give you health issues. So it's really important to wake up every day and be grateful and be thankful and look at the good side, because the way we live our life is our own mentality. It's nobody else's responsibility but our own to decide how we're going to wake up and take on that day. And we could all sit there and complain. We could all find all the bad in a day, or we can all find what is good in this day. And that will give you a long, healthy, happy life, I think. I hope.
You're like, that's what I'm running with. So
that's what I'm going with. I am a super joyful, I have a lot of positivity, and I also think that's contagious. So I like to be around people who have that too. If I hang out with someone that's really negative, I probably don't spend any more time with them. I also, you know, I think in this industry, and you're in the industry, and being around people who complain all the time is, you don't want to be around that person, because that means that they're not doing anything. And you want to be, I surround myself with people who are more successful than me, who are better than me, because I want to learn from them. And I want, you know, I always want to be learning more and more. I never, you know, so like we said, you're the 5 people you spend your most time with. Make sure those are those are people who bring out the absolute best in you.
Yeah, there's no use hanging around with someone that drains you entirely.
I also recommend to people to volunteer at a nursing home, hang out with old people. I feel like, sadly, they're very much the forgotten generation. And we can learn so much from them. They have so much wisdom. I had a client who lived through World War II, and when you're with people who lived through that kind of stuff, it just puts things in perspective. And you're like, how can I complain about anything when this woman's telling me that she lived in the woods and used an axe to cut down a tree to eat a fruit from the tree because she had nowhere to eat food or live, and she was in hiding. Like, you go, okay, life is awesome.
Absolutely. You know, it's a lot of in researching the biographical episodes, so many times I'm like, I have literally nothing to ever complain about ever again. Basically every single episode that I write, I'm like, And any bad day, I mean, everyone's entitled to bad days, but it's also like,
Oh,
put it into perspective and be like, well, you know, I didn't have to live on a third a cup of rice today. So I've got it pretty made.
totally. Even with COVID, sometimes I get really down, and then I think about Anne Frank in a closet, in a
Hmm.
wall for years, and I'm like, okay, get yourself some perspective. You have a backyard with a swimming pool, like shut up.
Yeah.
But it's okay to also have to, I think it is important to take the time to recognize how you feel and be like,
Hmm.
okay, it's okay to get sad and be down. You do need that. But I think it's
Hmm.
just like my brother Alex, who won the Amazing Race. Like if I'll go to him sometimes and be like, oh, this is really hard. And he's like, okay, you can do that for about 20 minutes. And then it's time to buck up and get going again
Uh-huh.
and make something happen. And
Exactly.
like what you said, going to people, like I definitely go to my big brother Alex when I know I need a pep talk of
Hmm.
stop feeling sorry for yourself, get out there and crush it. No one's stopping you. You're the only one stopping yourself. You can
Hmm.
create it. If we're mad about something, and whether it's anything, we are the ones who have them. We have to go change it. We can't
Yeah,
expect that somebody else is going to change it for us. That's our responsibility.
absolutely. You are a woman of many hats, and you co-created something called Your Pizza Adventure,
Yeah.
which is an innovative, I'm taking verbatim these words, an innovative live action choose your own adventure style movie slash app game. What?
I
And
know.
also, like, can I play? Like, where can I find this?
I know. I know. That is like, that's a crazy, sad story about where that is right now because it should be out there because it took us 2 years to make it. It was so innovative. It was at the time like no one had ever done anything quite like it,
Mm,
even though there's obviously been choose your own adventure stuff. But even when we submitted the game to Apple, they proved it in a second and they said, this is incredible. This is kind of showing what our technology can do. This was years
yeah.
ago. But yeah, so funnily enough, like this is how our team is so me and John and the people I've been working with for 10 years, we just kind of constantly are doing something. We don't let anything stop us, if that makes sense. So we
Hmm.
had made Home Sweet Home and we finished it and we submitted it to like 15 film festivals. No film festivals accepted it. It got rejected and we literally was like, okay, well, we didn't get any film festivals, maybe we'll show our parents who made a feature and let's move on. So during that time we were like, what could we do? And we had talked to this guy who was an app developer and we decided, let's make a choose your own adventure app game. And literally Home Sweet Home's like sitting on a hard drive somewhere and we kind of moved on and thought, okay, let's do something else. Maybe that could make us money. Apps were really big, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So we literally made up how to make a choose your own adventure live action game. Like we created the entire blueprint of this, like made it up, like just
Oh,
no one. It's crazy. Like I have one of the blueprints framed in another room and it has all the pathways, like pizza boy starts here and then this happens and it splits here. It's like a little
oh, that's
spider
so
web.
cool.
Yeah, but I think what happened was at the time, and I can't even exactly remember the year. It's in my book because my book, we were making it when I wrote the book or had the book. Um, we submitted it to Apple, and it was a little ahead of its time because at the
Mm,
time the phones couldn't handle like really big downloads. Like now they can handle movie downloads and all
yeah.
this. But at the time, it was kind of like people were like, "Ooh, I have to be on Wi-Fi, and it takes a while, and it takes a lot of my memory from my phone."
Mm,
And also we had paid for the LLC in LA, and I don't know anybody who lives in LA. It's an $800 LLC, whether you make a dollar or not. So
mm,
you have to pay on your LLC every year. And we were naive filmmakers who were like, oh, I'll just get this $800 LLC, not realizing that you have to pay that every single year for
mm,
as long as you have it. And so we were struggling with getting sales because of the iPhones being too small at the time.
right.
And we were kept getting slapped with all these like $800 LLC fines, or not fines, but, and then the IRS said we owed them money or something. It was like, it became like this whole
Oh,
not worth the money for the fact that we get like one download a month that was
oh,
99 cents. So, literally, we were all really heartbroken the day we had to all decide that we had to remove it from the Apple store because we didn't want it there without the LLC, and we didn't want, we couldn't have the bank account attached to it because of the IRS stuff. It was crazy.
Right.
I learned a lot about like trying to be an entrepreneur, innovator is not cheap in Los Angeles, California.
Oh,
And
man.
so the team, and we were so heartbroken because no joke, it took us 2 years to make that game. And so much blood, sweat, and tears went into that. And we keep talking about putting it on YouTube or figuring out how to move the LLC and then reopen it because, but the problem is I think like to get it on the App Store, you have to have your app developer. And this man, like, I want you to play it. I like, whenever I talk about it, I am like, okay, I need to call the team and we need to figure out how to get this back out there because it's so fun. It was family friendly. It's about a pizza delivery guy and you're trying to deliver the pizza and all the deaths are the pizza dies. So you have to keep the pizza alive. And what's so fun about a pizza is pizza looks like blood. So we killed a pizza 80 different ways. Like we had to come up with 80 different ways to kill pizza.
Oh my gosh. This sounds so much fun.
It was so much fun.
I hope that at some point you guys are able to release it again because people love that choose your own stuff. I mean, referencing back to Black Mirror, they had that whole like movie episode where you fully chose your own adventure that whole time. Those were my favorite books as a kid. It would always make me really mad that my teachers wouldn't let me do book reports on those kind of books. Like it wasn't allowed. And I'm like, what's the difference between this and a different fiction novel? Like, why can't I write a report about 2 different endings that I found? And they're like, no, it's not legitimate. Like, excuse you. I will go enjoy this on my own then. Like, God.
That is hilarious. I loved Choose Your Own Adventure books when I was a kid. I mean, that was a big inspiration for us, was like, wouldn't it be fun to take back that idea and make it more, and it was actually a really good memory game because kids would say that they would play it and then try to remember what they did. And there's so many different pathways. I mean, we made it too big. Like we were afraid that we were going to make it too small. But we made it so big. If we had made it smaller, it probably would have crashed the iPhone. But we're like, well, it has to have 150 different directions it goes and all these different deaths. So, but we always look back at it as was a very fond experience there was only pretty much four of us that made the movie, that made the app game together. And we just run around the streets of LA. Like we had a guy dressed as a pizza guy. I was the villain who was the pizza delivery rival. And we had like a hot girl with a bike who always wants your pizza. And we had a bum, like a homeless guy who always wants your pizza. And those 4 people were also the filmmakers. So we would have a boom and a camera and we'd run around Los Angeles shooting this movie in alleyways. And, when the cops would come by, they just laughed at us. I think they were like, this looks like the most ridiculous thing. I'm not even going to shut you down. Keep shooting this weird pizza thing. So we had fun. And it's funny because after the app game, we were also devastated that things weren't going our way. That then when Home Sweet Home ended up selling, it was like then we went on to making movies. So you never know. Maybe if the app game had gone, I'd be in a different life right now. And maybe that had to happen so that I'd go and pursue female-driven films.
Yeah.
Everything for a reason, right?
Life is full of crazy twists and turns. And like you were saying, you have to just be ready to pivot. You got to be ready to pivot. And then you never know what's going to happen.
And let go and not dwell too much on it. Like when in 2009, I was Megan Fox's stand-in on a movie with Mickey Rourke and Bill Murray. And it was, I got a call the next year from the producers who was actually Megan Ellison.
Mm.
And they wanted to reshoot half the movie, and they wanted to use me in the movie as Mickey Rourke's wife when he's young in flashbacks.
Mm.
So I went from being a stand-in to getting
Mhm.
an opportunity to be in a movie as Mickey Rourke's young wife.
Yeah.
And I shot for 7 days in LA. I was so excited. I was like, this is going to change my career. I'm going to finally get noticed. I'm in a movie with Bill Murray and Mickey Rourke and Megan Fox. Well, the director and the producers did not agree on it, and it never ever saw the light of day.
Oh.
And Passion Play went out just exactly as it was made, and the thing that I shot for 7 days that I'm so proud of never ever went anywhere. And it's taken me, the best advice is I've spent so much of my energy sad and angry and feeling like I always got the wrong deck of cards in life. Like, how would this happen? And then I didn't get it. And my wardrobe, the woman who did my wardrobe on that movie,
Mhm.
introduced me to her boyfriend, who's been my composer since Home Sweet Home. And so we met back in the day.
Oh.
And we were at the premiere for Wish for Christmas, and I saw Sarah, my wardrobe, and I was like, isn't it so messed up that I'm still harboring, I'm not even kidding about this. I was like, Sarah, isn't it so messed up that never went anywhere? I'm so mad. And she looked at me and she goes, but Alexandra, if it had gone somewhere and you had gone on that trajectory of life, we would not be all standing here having a party for Wish for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, Sarah, you're so wise. Why am I wasting my energy and not enjoying what I have? So,
Mm.
but sometimes people have to knock you over the head, to finally
Mhm.
go, that wasn't the way my life was supposed to go. It could have been totally different. And maybe
Mhm.
it would have sucked.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, who knows?
who knows?
Literally no one. But we do know that because of the, stages within your career, you've ended up where you are.
Well, and truthfully, had the Passion Play China White thing ever worked out, I would have just gone back to doing what I was doing before, which was getting an
Uh-huh.
agent, getting headshots, trying to book the next job.
Yep.
I'm so glad that I
Mm.
didn't. That was such a terrible time in my life, but I probably would have slipped back in just like that.
Yep.
Oh, I'm gonna be a movie star again. Okay, I better give up everything else and
Mm.
get headshots and find an agent and go on
Mhm.
the rat race of auditions that never paid off for me. So I feel like I was being protected. I just
Mm.
couldn't see it at the time.
Right.
And that's why it's like we can never see anything. We need life in the rearview mirror to go, oh, that's why that happened.
Mhm.
And that's why I feel like it's okay to have the 20s be a time where you're just really trying to figure it out, and then you're going to have a lot of life to write from or use to create.
Mhm.
You have to have
Mhm.
life to tell stories.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we get to our last two questions, is there anything else that you would like to add where we can find you, your project's current, past, future, something you'd like to discuss that we didn't get to mention?
I guess we've we've run the gamut of a lot of stuff. Actually, we've done good in an hour and 43 minutes. Yeah, well, I'm on Instagram, Alexandra Boylan. I'm on Facebook, also Alexandra Boylan. I don't do Twitter, so please don't write me at Twitter because I never ever go on my Twitter page. But please reach out to me if people Instagram message me or Facebook. I always write people back, and I love to engage with people if they have questions or. And then all my films, so mustardseedent.com lists all of our movies, where you can get our movies. And also, if you guys want to check out At Your Own Risk, right now, At Your Own Risk is on YouTube for free. We put it up there during the pandemic so people could just watch that movie. And
Oh,
so go to YouTube, put
I
in
know what
At
we're
Your Own Risk.
watching tonight.
At Your Own Risk. Probably need to put my name or Helena Santos, Alexandra Boylan, just to find it, because there's a lot of things that come up on YouTube. And it's for free right now. So go check out At Your Own Risk, and let us know if you enjoy it. And so that's where you can find me in my work. And check out To the New Girl, my dear friend Laura Hunter Drago's movie that I'm in, because she's awesome and gave me an acting role. And that movie is so good, and everyone does need to see it because it's awesome.
So I ask the same last two questions to everyone that comes through the podcast.
Okay.
First, what is your second favorite color?
Second favorite color.
Second favorite color.
Ooh, probably yellow.
What kind of yellow?
Like bright yellow, like
super bright yellow.
Joyful yellow.
Why do you like that shade of yellow?
Because I have my first house in Los Angeles in my whole life. And it is this happy yellow color. And I just love that I live in a yellow house with a red rose garden.
Oh.
And when I pull in the driveway, I feel like my house is like smiling at me, and it feels like all these years of hard work. And I have like the house next to us is very brown, and the one on the other side is brown. And I'm like, I'm so happy that we found the yellow house, the happy house.
The sunshine house.
The sunshine house. And I love it. And it's like I'm living in my dream home. So I love my color of my house.
And last, what, in your opinion, is the best part of being a woman?
Best part, besides having, God gave me really big, beautiful breasts. I actually like literally God given, and I love them so much. And I'm so lucky I'm a woman because I get to have these beautiful breasts. I think there's just so many things that are so wonderful about being a woman. I know it's high maintenance, but I love getting my hair done and my fingernails done. My favorite color is pink. I've always loved being a girl. Like I love playing with Barbies, and I have no problems. Like when we made Switched, I wore pink every day on set. Like I have no problem being like, we wear pink every day here. Like I love celebrating everything that has to do with women, and I hope to continue to enforce that women love each other, women champion each other. Women can change the world when they put their mind to it. We're multitasker, we can multitask, and there's just so many incredible qualities about women. And I feel really blessed that I feel like I am trailblazing, and I'm really excited that I hope I leave a legacy behind that makes it easier for other women to get to do things they weren't normally going to get to do, because I'm out there fighting to do it and not taking no for an answer.
I love it. I love it. And it's something that you are clearly living by. You're not just saying these things. You are doing these things, and you're holding the door open and saying, walk in, join me. And I think that's incredible. And
thank you.
That's such a great person to have in the position that you're in, or the position that you've created for yourself. You know what I mean? Like that's the right kind of person to have in that position. And so that's a great answer in general from start to finish.
Thank you. Yeah, I love when women on my set come up to me and thank me for getting a position that maybe they wouldn't have gotten. And I take a lot of pictures on our set where you'll see all the women behind the monitor, and I'm like, this is how a movie set should look. We have like 7 women sitting behind the monitor. And really giving jobs to women that don't normally get that. And you always hear the vicious cycle. Well, they didn't have anything on their resume. Well, they didn't have any opportunity to get anything on their resume. So it's like the same as what was told to me. You can't make a female-driven faith-based film. There's no movie out there. I'm like, well, someone has to be the one to go and do it.
Exactly.
And that there is an audience that wants to buy it. Yeah, so I feel like, and the more we struggle and then succeed, the more I want to push even harder, that I know I'm doing something right, and that I will not take the rejection for reality.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sitting down today and taking the time to chat. I feel like that was a really wonderful conversation that we've had about women in film, and and about your journey. And thank you for being candid about your ups and your downs, and getting
Yeah.
to where you are now.
Yeah, I want people to know it's a rocky road. I don't know anybody who had it easy. No one had it easy. Trust me. And if they do, they're lying, or that story isn't told. Unless like maybe your dad was Brad Pitt and you just walked right in. But I'm sure even they had struggles. I mean, it's a hustle. It's a hustle.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
I don't think it ever goes away. I think you have to hustle forever. You have to be in this to win this.
Yes, 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 yes.
Well, thank you so much for talking about my work and giving me a platform to get to talk about all these incredible movies. And thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why we created this platform, to showcase the people who are actively doing what they can to bring their voice and voices of others out in all fields, and all across the world. So it's been, it's important that we tell all these stories.
Yes, it
we
is.
we
Thank
love
you.
it.
Thanks for doing that. You're awesome. You are amazing.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in again. You know the drill. Subscribe, rate, review, tell all your friends so that we can continue to share these stories. You can follow us on social media, on Twitter at the Her Story Pod, Instagram at Women of Her Story Podcast, and you can visit our website at ofherstory.com to keep up to date with everything that we're doing. Until next week, be safe, stay healthy, and show the world what you're made of.